In dining halls, church basements, and family kitchens, soul food kept spirits strong throughout the civil rights movement. These classic dishes nourished hope and resistance, even as segregation loomed. Relive the flavors that fed a revolution as we count down the era's top 10 soul foods. Number 1. Red beans and rice. Let's go back to bustling kitchens where the air is thick with steam and voices rise and fall like a Sunday choir. Red beans and rice isn't just a meal, it's the heartbeat of togetherness. In the South of the 1950s and 1960s, this humble combination brought families, neighbors, and activists around crowded tables, fueling bodies and spirits through the most turbulent days of the civil rights movement. Picture a battered aluminum pot simmering on the stove while volunteers debate strategy into the early hours. Red beans, gently seasoned and stretched with fields worth of rice, made the most of every scrap. No one went hungry, no matter how many arrived hungry at the door. You'd find this dish after mass meetings, bracing civil rights workers for another day, confronting injustice in places like Montgomery and Jackson. The pot was always big enough. Ingredients: smoked sausage if you could get it, bell pepper, celery, onion, and a hands-off, slow patience came together in a rhythm passed down through generations. In 1963, when hope sometimes seemed out of reach, red beans and rice was a simple reminder. Comfort is power, and sharing a meal is a kind of faith. The scent alone was an embrace, proof that ordinary food could unite tired hearts and inspire the courage to keep going. Number 2. Barbecued ribs. Smoke and laughter hung heavy in the evening air as slabs of ribs slowly cooked over charcoal, providing both flavor and fuel for the movement. In towns from Birmingham to Memphis during the 1960s, barbecued ribs were far more than a meal. They were a rallying point, headlining Ann Mahelli ACP picnics and impromptu churchyard fundraisers. The money raised from selling plates of tender, spicy ribs helped bankroll everything from bus fare for freedom riders to bail for demonstrators imprisoned for peaceful protest. Ingredients mattered deeply, with tomato and vinegar-based sauces in North Carolina, while Memphis cooks swore by dry rubs touched with cayenne and brown sugar. But every family's recipe came with its own secret twist, closely guarded as an emblem of pride and local spirit. Men tended the pits for hours, brushing sauce over pork that crackled in the heat, drawing crowds with the unmistakable scent. You could hear spirited debates about who made the best ribs, but no one doubted their power to bring people together. In January 1965, church records in Selma note a barbecue that fed hundreds on the eve of a march to the courthouse. The act of eating with neighbors turned strangers into allies, laughter smoothing out nerves before hard days of pushing for justice. Tongues tingling with sweet heat, hands sticky, but hearts united. Barbecued ribs were sustenance and symbol, feeding the hope that tomorrow the world might just taste a little bit better. Number 3. Smothered chicken. The sizzle of chicken frying in a well-worn skillet, the fragrance of slow-simmered onion gravy seeping into every corner of the house. Smothered chicken was more than a meal for black families during the civil rights era. This dish was a flagship of Sunday dinners, its tender pieces pulled from the scarred pan only after hours of patient tending. Preparing smothered chicken meant pooling time, effort, and the occasional rationed ingredient, a testament to how treasured such gatherings were in the 1950s and 1960s. The trick lay in letting the meat soak in that rich gravy until it nearly fell apart under a fork, a delicacy forged from simple necessities by hands that knew hardship. It spoke of sanctuaries found around the dining table, especially when life outside felt hostile or uncertain. Smothered chicken appeared at homecomings, after church meals, or whenever loved ones needed comfort. If your grandmother ever poured a peppery onion gravy over her chicken and let it steam until melting, you know the hush that blankets a room when the first plate is passed. The sight of it, golden and fragrant, signaled hope and perseverance. The taste reminded you that care, even when hard-won, could nourish a family. Even now, just a hint of onion and pan drippings can bring it all rushing back, a memory stewed in strength and togetherness, ready to be served up once more. Number 4. Okra and tomatoes. Bright green okra pods sliced and mingled with ruby red tomatoes, simmered low until everything melts together in a savory, tangy embrace. For many families in the 1950s and 1960s South, this simple dish was more than a side. It was a testament to resourcefulness, drawing strength from whatever the backyard garden or local market could offer. Okra and tomatoes found their way to church basement potlucks, weekday dinners, and even makeshift meals during protest marches, when nourishment had to come from what was freshly picked and quickly cooked. Every spoonful was a reminder of home soil tilled by hand, of summer's heat clinging to your skin, of the stubborn green vines that kept on producing when almost nothing else would. The slimy texture of okra, softened by slow cooking and balanced by tomatoes' acid, was a sensory signature. Seasoned with onion, bell pepper, and maybe a dash of bacon grease if it could be spared, the dish offered a flavor both silky and bright, comforting to the soul and filling to the stomach. In a time when packaged foods were scarce for many black families due to cost and segregation, okra and tomatoes represented dignified self-sufficiency. Today, that same stew simmers on, tying generations through scent and taste. With one whiff of the bubbling pot, you know you're home, even if that home exists now only in memory. Number 5. Cornbread. Golden and aromatic, cornbread sat at the center of countless gatherings. Its crumbly slices carrying more than just flavor, they carried hope. In the heat of the civil rights era, when young organizers and wise elders gathered in churches or traveled the sun-beaten roads of Georgia and Alabama, cornbread was always there. Its basic recipe, cornmeal, baking powder, a splash of buttermilk, was easy to whip up with the most modest means, right in a wood-floored kitchen or in the back rooms of southern sanctuaries. What made it essential was its portability. Wrapped in a faded dish towel or brown paper napkin, a wedge of cornbread could ride in a pocket or lunch sack onto a bus heading toward a rally in Selma, or a sit-in at a local lunch counter. During the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955 and 1956, activists filled their pockets with cornbread to fuel hours of peaceful protest as they walked instead of riding. It soaked up collared pot liquor or lent backbone to a bean supper served in church basements, nourishing both body and fighting spirit. For every hand that broke a piece of its crust, cornbread spoke of resourcefulness and the unbroken thread of community. One bite, and you tasted the steadfastness it took to demand change, bite after bite, day after day. Let's pause for a second. Did your family have a secret addition to their cornbread, or a story that came with every batch? Share a memory about this humble classic in the comments. Number 6. Sweet potato pie. The aroma of freshly baked sweet potato pie filled kitchens, church basements, and gathering halls across the South during the Civil Rights era, promising a moment of sweetness after hardship. Golden orange filling, rich with nutmeg, cinnamon, and just enough brown sugar, rested in flaky crusts perfected by generations of family hands. These pies were never just desserts. They were tokens of hope, comfort, and connection. No matter the occasion, sweet potato pie traveled well, tucked into baskets for NAACP picnics in 1961, or wrapped in foil for long rides to rallies and sit-ins. After hard-fought victories or nights spent singing freedom songs, someone would slice a pie into generous pieces, sending a taste of home across crowded tables or front porches. With each forkful, you sensed the care and pride in every ingredient, a blend of community and tradition shared, not hoarded. Homemade sweet potato pie became a symbol of unity, nourishment that fed bellies and spirits alike. The simple act of passing a slice to a tired neighbor or a weary foot soldier became a wordless, unforgettable gesture of solidarity. The memory of sweet potato pie, its warmth, spice, and the comfort it brought, lingers today, a humble but mighty testament to the sustenance that fueled a movement. If you closed your eyes now, you might still smell it cooling by the window, promising strength for the struggles yet to come. Number 7. Black-eyed peas. A pot of black-eyed peas bubbling gently on the stove could anchor a room with earthy, uplifting scent. In kitchens across the South and beyond, cooks added pork fat and onions to these speckled little beans, building flavor from humble ingredients. Black-eyed peas weren't just a meal. They formed a tradition, especially on New Year's Day, when a steaming spoonful promised luck and prosperity for the year ahead. But during the civil rights era of the 1950s and 1960s, their power extended even further. At marches, sit-ins, and late-night planning sessions, black-eyed peas nourished tired bodies and comforted restless spirits. Food was a tool for survival, but also for solidarity. Stretching this staple to feed hungry crowds became an act of care and quiet resistance. It didn't matter whether you were gathering in a Montgomery church basement or around a folding table after a protest. A bowl of black-eyed peas was something you could count on. Each bite carried whispers of hope and togetherness. From the heart of sharecropper shacks to city apartments, this dish traveled quietly, never stealing the spotlight, but always there. Today, the taste of smoky peas laced with onion can still bring back the feeling of strangers becoming friends over a shared mission. In the simple repetition of stirring that pot, you could sense the deep belief that better days would come, and that every person at the table deserved a seat. The next harmony rises just as the flavor lingers. What other soul food stitched a community together? Number 8. Fried catfish. Steam rises off a plate of flaky cornmeal-crusted catfish, the aroma of hot oil and pepper dust lingering in the air. Fried catfish was more than a meal. It was the centerpiece of Friday night fish fries, from rural Mississippi Delta towns to church basements in Detroit during the Civil Rights era. These gatherings reached their peak between the 1950s and 1960s, turning humble fillets into vehicles for hope, connection, and strategy. Churches and civic centers would transform into buzzy, laughter-filled halls as volunteers shuffled out platters of crisp, golden catfish alongside hush puppies, coleslaw, and pitchers of sweet tea. Fish fries became a vital social glue, breaking down barriers of class and creed as everyone, laborers, teachers, preachers, and young activists, lined up for a place at the communal table. At Mount Nebo Baptist Church in Cleveland, Mississippi, or at Detroit's Northside Rec Centers, you'd find both elders and newly minted organizers swapping stories and quietly debating tactics for the next march. The meal's warmth and simplicity carried immense weight, creating a sense of belonging that extended far beyond the taste of perfectly seasoned fish. Even now, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the clatter of tin trays, the pop of catfish in oil, and distant laughter. Fried catfish was fuel for the body and the movement, a dish that reminded everyone where they came from and what they could accomplish together if they stayed united. Number 9. Ham hocks and collard greens. The unmistakable aroma of ham hocks simmering with collard greens fills more than just a kitchen. It stirs old memories of hard-won hope. In the 1960s, these humble ingredients were the backbone of countless kitchens across the South. Collards, pulled from backyard gardens, met ham hocks. Offerings from neighborhood butchers are picked up with spare coins to become something much greater than the sum of their parts. Stewed low and slow, the result was greens glistening with a smoky, savory depth, and a pot liquor prized just as much as the leaves themselves. For many African American families, and especially those on the front lines of the civil rights movement, a steaming plate of greens and ham hocks was a symbol. Food was power, sustenance, and a comforting thread uniting households and activists. Preparing such dishes in church basements or community centers, cooks stretched every scrap to feed the bodies and spirits of those organizing for justice. Sharing food like this reflected a deep-rooted generosity, with ingredients often donated by neighbors, supporting the cause in whatever way they could. By making something deeply nourishing out of what society had deemed cast-offs, home cooks claimed a quiet dignity and, in their way, defied the structures hoping to hold them back. The taste still lingers: peppery greens, smoky broth, and the strength that came from gathering together around a humble meal. As the world moves quickly forward, the memory of ham hocks and collard greens lingers like a melody you can't help but hum. Number 10. Chitterlings, chitlins. Few aromas fill a kitchen like a pot of chitlins gently simmering, promising a meal that's both an acquired taste and a powerful legacy. In the 1950s and 1960s, chitterlings, pig intestines prepared with care and plenty of cleaning, were more than humble food. During the height of the civil rights movement, chitlins stood as an edible symbol of perseverance, a taste forged from centuries of necessity and ingenuity. At grassroots gatherings, church basements, or family kitchens across the South, chitlin suppers became a ritual. Scented with vinegar or a splash of homemade hot sauce, these meals drew in crowds. They were comfort, sustenance, and activism all at once. By the mid-1960s, many African American communities used chitlin suppers as creative fundraisers, gathering neighbors to support civil rights efforts and bail funds. Chitlins are a dish that testifies to the resourcefulness forged under hardship. The very fact families learned to transform them into something cherished remains an emblem of survival against injustice and poverty. While their harsh smell and labor-intensive prep led some younger generations to shy away, the memory of those long, laughter-filled evenings lingers. Chitlins are more than a meal. They're a story simmered in history, a reminder of how food can unite, nourish, and even fuel the fight for something bigger. As kitchens have changed, the legacy of chitlins remains, echoing the strength and spirit of every hand that ever stirred that pot.